Hey guys, it's Booligan with Airsoft Retreat, BooliganAirsoft.com and Airsoft Insider Magazine. Today, taking a look at a custom build that I just completed this weekend, the S&T M1903 Scout Rifle. Now this thing started as a standard M1903, long barrel, no optic, no cheek rest, any of that stuff, and that terrible red finish that most all China-made real wood guns come with. I saw a picture of a modified rifle on the Airsoft Heretics Facebook group, and I thought it was pretty cool. It was a Mauser derivative, had a short barrel, modern optic on it, and was just a pretty cool setup. It had a funky adjustable cheek rest, and I said, I could build something like that. I've got a World War II era gun, World War I era gun sitting around. Let's make some magic happen, and thus this thing was born. The first and most noticeable thing I did was cut off a whole bunch of the front end. Specifically, this much outer barrel and this much handguard. Normally was there on the front, and it's not there anymore. Well, I've got this bit of handguard here. You can take a look at the color difference. It's this kind of iffy wood color, or excuse me, red color. Not a big fan. Much darker now. We'll talk about how I did that in just a minute. The front sight and muzzle assembly on this is not threaded, but it is its own standalone piece that is secured with a hex screw. The outer barrel has a component that is turned down, and then it's secured like this. But when I cut off the barrel, I didn't have that part anymore, so I had to get creative and use a power screwdriver and a Dremel tool as kind of a poor man's lathe to turn down that barrel enough to fit this over it. It's hammered in place and then locked in with that screw, and it's not going anywhere. The flash hider is an A2 birdcage style flash hider, which is also hammered in place, and that one was a bit trickier. I had to use a very large drill bit to drill out the threaded portion at the base so that it would slip over the muzzle and then be secured by a hex screw, which I drilled. So pretty easy stuff, nothing too crazy there, but unfortunately I had to drill it out really thin, and the whole base part of the flash hider broke off, and the flash hider itself is cracked. I'll come up with a better solution to that at some point in time, but today, not going to happen. The rest of the gun is held together pretty much the same as it normally would be. This is put on a little bit tighter than it normally would be, since there's no little clamp holding it at the front. And you can see, notched to fit the front sight. Looks almost factory, looks nicely integrated. I'm a little bit proud of that. You have a very small section of rail which is screwed into one of the threaded holes in the receiver, and it butts up against this front handguard cap, I guess you could call it, and keeps it from rotating. It's actually on there very solid. Right now I've got this UTG red dot sight, a little flip up cap, mainly because it was the lowest mount that I had for this type of optic, but this is going to be going away very soon, and my Aimpoint replica is going to go on there once my new mount arrives from Amazon. It had a cantilever mount, and I wasn't a big fan of that. For the cheek rest, I didn't need something adjustable or particularly removable, so this cheek pad is from an SVD. Specifically, that SVD. The SVD that I took the cheek pad off, and it now has a Maglite flashlight on the front. Always repurpose your spare parts. So that's this, and to make it look like it's properly attached, and it is properly attached because it's held in place with a screw, I took an old leather belt, screwed it in place as well. The overall look works, it fits with the gun, it looks really cool, and the cheek height, the cheek rest, gives me a perfect height for looking through most optics, so it works out really well. The last thing that needed to be addressed was that terrible China red finish, and the best way that I was able to get rid of that was sand the whole thing down using at first 150 grit sandpaper, then 220 to smooth it out a little bit. Sand off as much of that finish as I possibly could, staining my hands red in the process, and then I hit it with some ebony wood stain, and I cannot recall the brand off the top of my head, but there'll be a picture of it somewhere in this video of the can that I used. And it's the same finish that I used on that. on my KJW 1022. So they kind of match. They're a little bit twins, except for that was really, really, really light wood before I stained it. This was still a little bit dark because I obviously couldn't get all of that China red off. But the overall finish now looks infinitely better, just so much better than it did before. It's darker, it has more character to it, it has some depth to it, and it looks frankly like something that would actually be on a battle rifle, and I'm super proud of that finish. And I don't know why China has to do this with their wood stocks, but it is what it is. But I digress. The gun, as it currently sits, is shooting about 370 feet per second still, chopping off a lot, about 10 inches of inner barrel. Made really no difference when it comes to the velocity, as it dropped at about 20 or 30 FPS. And strangely enough, it's more accurate now than it was before. Before, if you recall my previous review of this gun, I would get shots that would just zing off to the left, if I remember correctly. It would be about every 8 or 9 shots, and they would just, like they hit a brick wall and veered off at a 45-degree angle. I think they were hitting something inside of the muzzle assembly, but in the process of making this work, I opened that up a little bit more, so now there's nothing really for it to hit, and it seems to go much smoother. So this thing is absolutely still deadly accurate, and is skirmish ready for almost any airsoft field. It's still shooting a little too hot for my preferred CQB field at Milsim City, but I may swap a new spring in it, tinker with it however I can, because this thing would be an absolute blast to run with a fully modern loadout in multicam and at a CQB field, because really, why not? Let's put a couple of rounds through this thing on the chronograph and see how it shoots. Many thanks to the Airsoft Heretics group, to be honest, because they're the ones who put the idea of this stupid thing in my head. Same thing with the Maglite SVD. So if you're not a member of the group, you should probably join the group, because, man, ridiculous crap gets put up there. Many thanks to you guys, of course, for actually watching the channel. If it wasn't for you guys watching it, I would have very little motivation to actually make cool stuff, other than just to, make myself happy, and that only goes so far. So, many thanks to Evic as well, ultimately, for sending over this gun in the first place. I don't think they know what happens to a lot of the guns after they send them to me for review. I review them, and then they go on the wall, or they go in the pile of guns. And sometimes I make ridiculous crap out of them. So, many thanks to them for facilitating my terrible, ridiculous crap habit. Thanks for watching.